Don't know if you can hear Alfie snoring behind me. He is got his eyes slightly open, so it's a bit weird, you know. It's like someone watching you whilst they're asleep, but their eyes are open. It's weird. Yeah, I thought I would do the video when I was talking about how I was getting on with the benevo. And I said that I mentioned about animal derivatives that are labelled on cat foods, and also like on the cat cat foods, whether it's the wet stuff or the dry. Snoring's putting me off. I'm trying to think of what I need to say without my fibro head having a meltdown and thinking, what did I just say? Because I do that all the time. Yeah, I decided to finally, I've been sitting on this for years. I've been looking and researching and asking various YouTubers. I mean, I know that Vegan Pixel Warrior, her cats are vegan fed. I've got known that Hench Herbivore's cat Cowboy is fed vegan food. And I thought, and there was quite a number of people, various YouTubers, that have cats that have said, yeah, and dogs as well. They feed their cats and dogs benevo. And I thought, you sort of imagine, because they're animals, that they are, they need it. They need it for protein. They need, they're hunters. They're naturally, if they were like loose outside, if there was a bird out there, go and get it. Those sides of things you can't do anything about. Me personally, my cats are indoor cats. They've got a lot of issues going on to do with abuse. It's had a knock-on effect on them physically, mentally, and it's just far easier for these guys to be indoors. I've got one that cannot go out anyway because of the breed that he is. He's a Sphinx, so he can't go out. And as a group, it's just easier. These guys are so used to it, it's normal to them. And I've got quite a few cats. I mean, I've got 7 of them. At one point in my life, at my previous address, I used to have the most that I had was 9. And then the numbers would drop down. One would be put to sleep for whatever reason. One had dementia, one had tumours in the spine. Age, thyroid issues, kidney issues. So yeah, I say one would get put to sleep and then I'd end up getting another one coming in. So the number would go back up again and then back down. There were issues with poops at times, and you sort of excuse it, but it was very difficult when I was with my previous, with my last abuser, because he used to overcook too much food and then he'd put it on the floor and let the cats eat it, and it was no good for him. Some of the cats would be sick and he found it funny. He didn't care. I used to hate it. It did no good for them in putting weight on and all that sort of stuff. So it was very difficult, if they were poorly in the tray, because I'd guess it was coming from them eating whatever he'd put down. A bit of trauma as well, because he used to spray them and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, after he'd gone, we had a little one called Luna appear. My son at first was like, no more cats, we've got enough. We had 6. I'd had Sadie put to sleep. She was desperate to be put to sleep, and he wouldn't let me take her to be put to sleep. He used to spend all my money, so I had no money to be able to put her to sleep. So the first thing I did as soon as I got rid of him was I took her to the vets and I had her put to sleep. And I cried all the way there in the car and on the shoulder of the lady that worked there, and on the way home I sobbed. I felt really bad. I felt relieved, but I felt bad because she was full of arthritis, and she was literally like, imagine a skeleton of a cat with a fur coat wrapped over the top of it. That was her. She was super skinny, and her bones, it was just bone on bone. She was struggling to move, and it was awful. So that was that. Then we had a bit of a breather, found out I've got to move because of my health and needing to be here, in a different location. The house was all wrong. Sorry, I know I'm waffling a bit. So and then my oldest one, Nina, needed putting to sleep. She was just short of being 22. And then X amount of months we moved after that. We'd had quite a little, a gap of, all the cats were full of issues. They were stressed out. They hated being here in a flat. They could hear the sounds of people coming and going in the corridor outside. It was like having strangers in the house, that kind of a vibe. It was weird for them. So anyway, there was a lot of anxiety. So I put the toilet in, and some of the issues with toileting down to that. I then tried different brands to try and sort things out. I had Luna, young cat. She had like issues where she was constantly scratching herself, and I mean scratching herself, whole body. It was I was frightened to touch her because every time I touched her there was a scab or it was bleeding, and she was a mess. So I took her to the vets because we had a change of vets. We're moving, and I said, "What's causing this? Is it an allergy?" I feel it's an allergy because if it was something like, I don't know, like a skin condition, like scabies or something, surely one or two other cats would also be like it. And she agreed with me, and she says that's definitely not scabies or anything like that, I'm trying to think. But yeah, it was, she says, I think it's allergy. But what is the allergy? And then she says it may be down to partially the trauma of moving. Get plugins, so I got plugins. I tried the plugins. Plugins worked for so long. All my cats were stressed out with the move. I had some that hid in cupboards, some that hid behind pieces of furniture. I even set up quiet areas in my bedroom behind. So I moved cupboards forward, shelving moved forward. And I put like a stool that I had, a long stool, and I put some cat beds on there so they had quiet areas behind it. So if they wanted somewhere to go that they felt safe, then they could go. And there was a few other places. I put beds up high and had the plugins, and they only worked for so long. And I felt that the plugins only worked when they were sitting on top of them, and there were times where they'd literally be circling fall asleep around the plug-in. I'd be like, oh my God, okay. So, and they'd be having a good sniff of it as they went in, and I thought, this isn't much cop, is it? So anyway, I decided, is it something like a cleaning product? Impossible to tell. I ended up taking Luna back to the vet several times for steroid injections. Every time it wore off, she'd be back to scratching again, bleeding again. And I worried about her getting a really serious infection and dying basically on me. And so anyway, the vet, it was really, really lovely. She was like, I do feel that it is diet. Keep with the plugins. See what potentially it is that's causing it. And it is so difficult because these cats, it's like, where do you start? Where do you start looking in the way of the foods? And I'd been looking online, I'd been asking questions. I swear some of the YouTubers that I was asking questions were probably fed up with me because I was asking more and more of the same question. And yeah, it's like, what do I do? What do I do? And it was really stressful. And so I decided I'd been buying, I know that I'd bought Asda's cheap cat food, their whatever it is, Tiger, that's it. And I hated the smell to it. I'd open the tin and it would make me feel sick. So we did that for so long, and then I felt like in the warmer weather it seems to smell like it's gone off. It's horrible. So I changed from that to another brand, Whiskers, and then there was the dry as well, so I got that moved on to another brand. I always found that certain brands would make my cat sick. They literally would. I mean, if I tried them, say I was in Aldi, had to get back, and if I grabbed one of their cat foods in the dry, then yeah, they'd be throwing up. I'd find great big patches of just regurgitated biscuits, and that's like, as soon as they'd eaten them, they'd be back up again, and I'd be like, this is just a waste of time. And it'd be all over the place. So I got rid of that idea. Then I tried Whiskers, same kind of story with that. And it was just awful. So then I thought, right, avoid those brands. Tried Go-Cat, that wasn't too bad. But they were always screaming that they were wanting more. They were always hungry. Asda's own biscuits, they'd throw them back up. So I'd think, well, what is it? And she was still itchy, scratchy. But bit by bit, the scratching seemed to settle down. But then there was areas on her body of where she'd be cleaning herself excessively, and there'd be patches. And I did do a video last night of Luna's floofy bits. It's like Floof Watch. And I thought, do you know what? What is it? And I've got myself onto a vegan cat group, and I just like silently watch all the comments and posts, and I'd think, what do I do? And then when Charlie or Tabby passed away, he was the eldest that I had. He was the alpha male of the group. I then thought, yeah, I'm gonna start making some changes in the food. I'd bought quite a while before Charlie passed. I got Purina 1. Then I got the Purina 1 sensitive because certain cats were having IBS issues. Minnie was one of the worst ones. And it'd be a panic of like, oh my God, what can I feed them? So that was stressful in itself. And then, I got, after Charlie had passed, because it was a very quiet time and I hated it, because he was like my talking cat, you'd have conversations with him, he'd be like, chum, shouting, making noises back and everything, and very vocal and very expressive in his face as well. He was gorgeous. It was a pain in the arse at times, but then I think as he had the his mouth, all his teeth were rotten and he needed surgery, but they said until he drops the weight, no, until he puts weight on, because he dropped a lot of weight, until he puts weight on, we can't operate on him, he would die on the table. And I was like, fair enough. So I constantly have to make him comfortable with lots of different pain reliefs and things just to make him comfortable. And then I'd buy him separate foods that were soft and, easy on his mouth. And I let him have at the end whatever he wanted, basically. So I'm trying to think so I don't lose the train of thought in my head, because my fibro head will just make me forget and I'll be like, what did I just say? Then we had, because it was so quiet and everybody was like, it was like the heart of of these guys had disappeared, and it was horrible. And me and my son, we were both like, this is awful. And Luna really started really excessively cleaning herself again. And I was like, oh my God, I don't like this. So I thought, right, we'll get a little mate for her to play with and be a bit distracted maybe. Maybe that will work. And we went on a website, I'm not going to name which one it was. I don't normally agree with going on these sites. And I usually go down the rescue route, but the rescue route was very particular, and it was hard enough when we got Bob, and we lived in a gorgeous area in a cul-de-sac, and we had fields on the back, and it was quiet, and I was planning on getting a catio put on the garden. I had all sorts of ideas in my head of what I wanted to do. And yeah, I had big ideas, big thoughts on what I wanted to do. But rescues were really, really tough. And when we got Bob, I fought tooth and nail to get him, and luckily I managed to get him. I got my housing officer on side. I said, can you please say it's okay? And she authorised it. So we then got Bob, which was great. But yeah, when we were here, we're sort of close by to main roads. We are in a flat. We don't have an outside back garden that they can go into. So it was all no. So I went on the route of going on this website. My son saw this little black kitten and he was like, oh, I really want this one. And I was like, okay. But I'd always wanted a ginger to replace the cat that I'd lost that was my mate, Bob, the ginger one. And I always wanted another ginger to replace, not to replace, that's the wrong word, but to, be there. And, and this ginger popped up, Mr. Percy, who's on my leg at the moment. So I decided to get both of them. They could play together and potentially grow up with Luna, and that would be my last two cats. Having them, the Sphinx breeder, she said that they eat Tesco's cat food. I was like, oh, okay, expecting some really posh brand or something. And she was like, no, they're on Tesco's kitten food and Whisker's biscuits. And I was like, oh, right, okay, no problem. And anyway, I'd be feeding them separately as I attempted to, but then when you've got other cats of other ages, they're like more interested in the food that the kittens have got. So I had to suddenly, where I was trying to sort out the IBS issue with Minnie and Luna's skin issue, it suddenly took a backslide. The issues for either of those hadn't cleared up, and then kittens were wanting to eat what the adults were eating, so it was really difficult. So I just had to sort of put up with it, if you like. Then the cats, as they got older, were like, right, I was like, right, that's it. You're all going on the same foods. Once they started eating what the adults were eating, that was it. The toileting issue with the poops was sort of like they were coming a bit loose, and I thought, well, perhaps it's because they need the flea wormer stuff. So I bought for everybody the flea wormer stuff, no issues, but the poops were still there. And then when I gave them any treat items, it's like, it was so bad. I was like, oh, this is not good. So I laid off those items. Then I try with changing the foods that I were buying. So we went on to Purina 1 with the sensitive range, thinking, oh, that will help. And it didn't do anything. And then it's just been one thing after another. And every time I tried something different, Harrington's I tried, same issue. What other brand did I try? I tried quite a few. Nude was one. That was one I used to get often from Tesco's. It was, packaged like as if it was like the best thing you can get. And then on a Sphinx group, they were like, oh, you need to be feeding them raw food. And I'm thinking, I can't do raw food, handling that. And people were giving me websites to go on, and some of the stuff that they were listing on the websites that you can feed your cat, I just thought, I can't do it. I know I'm very aware of handling a tin of Tesco's cat food, and I know that there's animals in there and animal parts and all the rest of it. But seeing it's like it's like ordering off a menu when you're not, before you sort of go vegan, and it's like pork and beef, and you wouldn't think about it, you just order it, beef burger, oh yeah, I'll have a nice piece of chicken. But then when you become vegan, you visualize the animal, don't you, and the slaughterhouse, and the fact that they're traveling on a truck, and the life that they've had beforehand, treated in factory farms, all that sort of stuff. And you just think, it's like going backwards, if you like. You're not paying for the meat item and the animal suffering for yourself, but you're paying for it for your animals. So you're still paying for that pain and suffering. And it really messes with your head, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And I had been looking on this vegan group for ages, this vegan cat group, and you get people, oh no, your cats can't be vegan, they can't do this, they can't do that. And I'm thinking, do you know what? My cats, not all of them, some of them can eat whatever and they've got no issues, they're not really sick or anything. But the others have got issues, and it's like, I've got to do something. Because they're so, like, you can see that they're uncomfortable, they're not happy, and I could keep trying on with different things from different pet places. You know, you've got I forget the name of the place now, but it's a really posh one, and they do like little bags of their dry cat food, and it's like 50 quid a bag, and I'm like, what? And they do list every single ingredient, but it is still a shock, the price of it. I couldn't afford that. It wouldn't last 5 minutes with 7 cats. Is it going to work? And then I was looking at the freezer section, because they've got raw food there, and I was working out how much it costs to get some of that. And of course, when you go on these raw websites, it's like they literally put it as it is. Horse, day old chicks, and you just think, oh my God. And then you've got all the usual poor animals that are sent to slaughter for food, and you know, you're talking like your chicken, your turkey, and your sheep, and cows and pigs. So yeah, and it just makes me feel like it just messed with my head, and I thought, I don't like this. And I come off this one website, and I was in Tesco's, and they had some fresh pet, it was called, in a chiller on the pet aisle, and it's like £5 for this, like a sausage shape of pate, and it says, oh, it contains eggs, and it contains and it tells you which animals are in it. And I thought, well, I don't agree with this, but I'll try it, and I'll mix it in with their food. I was managing to make one pate disc, because you cut it up into sections. It was you know, I'd dish it up and I'd mix it in with their food of what they were already having, and it seemed to be like they were eating it. And I thought, I'm not having the issues with the toileting so much, because the trays were like becoming just horrendous. And, you know, didn't seem to do too badly. I portioned it out. I got little containers to put this food in my bottom of my fridge. And I thought, okay, this will work now. Seems to be, I've got to give it time to see if it'll work for these cats. And I thought, what else can I do? So, yeah, they were eating it, and it seemed, I wasn't happy, but it sort of was messing with my head a little bit, because I'd had to sort of think of, do you know what, I'm buying this product for these to try and help them. Didn't like it. But I went and did it, and then one of the days I had to go back and get some more, and I managed to get one, and then the next time that I went back again, they had none at all. So I went to the desk and I said, this fresh pet, I says, have you stopped doing it? Oh, we're waiting on the delivery to come in, she says. And I was like, okay. So I said, as long as it hasn't run out, because I'm trying to get my cats onto it to help them out. Yeah. Oh, it'll be in, don't panic. And the freezer shelf, the fridge shelf was completely empty. Dogs, there was everywhere, but cats was completely empty. So, yeah. So where things seem to be slightly improved, I can't say it was hugely improved, but it was slightly, but it was still early days for to see the benefit. And these cats were just like, it was just horrendous, and I thought, this is really bad. I mean, I stroked Percy, and his tail was like caked in poop. So I had to wash him, to go in the bathroom and wash him down. And I just thought, poor love, this is awful. And I just thought, you know what? I have done all sorts of different dietary things for my cats. I've tried all sorts of little things. What do I do now? And my head kept thinking about this benevo, and every now and again I'd go on the website and I'd have a look. And I even because they were giving away free samples, and they ran out because many people were wanting them. And I said, oh, I wouldn't mind some for mine because I've got 7 of them. And they said, oh, we'll send you some out, and they never did. So I thought, right, okay. And I kept looking at it, kept watching the research and watching websites and Sphinx groups talking about raw and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, I really don't want to go down the raw route. But if I have to for these, then I'm going to have to. So I went on the websites for Benevo and I decided to order. It came really quickly. I had the dry and I had 1 can of 10 of the Benevo cat food, stroke dog food. And I decided to just give it a go, couple of days. So it's been adding into the bowl a handful, because you can't just stop it. Because if you just take away that food, they're not going to eat it. You've got to do it on a gradual basis, because it's like changing over from a brand of one cat food you've got, and you've got to go on to another brand of cat food. You still have to break them in gently with it, otherwise you end up with seriously bad diarrhea. So anyway, I was like, okay, let's do it this way, shall we? So yeah, I did the handful of IAM's cat foods that they were on, the dry, put it in. And then I got a handful of benevo, put that in, mix them together a bit so they weren't just able to just pick out what they wanted and leave the rest. And I did that a few times in the day because they like a fresh a fresh bowl down every now and again. So that's what I do, is I just put a bit of that in, intermingle it. They'd have the Tesco cat food. I have noticed this is what's classed as day 2 of where I've woken up and the trays are not caked in cat shit. All 3-4 trays are not laced in cat shit. Just gonna put this light on a sec. Ooh. So yeah, I thought that's a better idea. It was really strange having no cats. Well, not having no cats, but next to no cat poop anywhere. I was like, okay, this is good. They still had their regular Tesco's cat food. And then today I decided to start them on, because I had the knock on the door and I had the 3 tins of benevo cat food arrived, and they've got 2 samples of another brand, I think Army. So I've got those, which I may just have as treats for them for the time being. So yeah, what I did was I opened up the benevo, and the benevo itself, it's got a bit of a strange smell to it, but I put like a scoop of benevo with a scoop of the regular cat food that they have, and the regular one that they normally have, even they were wrinkling their nose up at that. So I was like, okay. But I sort of mix it together a bit. So they've got like a slow introduction to that side of food. And some of them sort of didn't eat it really enthusiastically, but I thought, you know what, just ignore. It's like having a change of foods and your kids being a bit funny and like, oh, I don't want that, I want the other one. And they like, eat that. And they're like, I don't want that. So it's just a case of just ignoring the face pulling and letting them get on with it in their own way. So that's exactly what it's been. And what was left of the benevo, I just put into like a little pot and I chucked it in the fridge, and I thought I'll deal with that later. Yeah, it's weird looking. It looks like, well, it looks like carrot mash. It looks a bit weird, but that's what I did, is I just put a bit of one, bit of the other, morphed it a bit together, and then they had what they wanted out of it. I thought, do you know what, if you're not going to eat all of it, that's fine. So I just put some of it down and I let them get on with it because I had someone coming over, so I just let them get on with it. And then later on I had the biscuits. They didn't eat all of it, but they gave it a good go, I think. And when it sort of got to the point of like, yeah, not the greatest of, when it goes past it in their eyes, I threw it away. And I put down the usual now handful of benevo, cat, dry, and the other brand. And I just let them get on with it. And actually today, I was like, yes. They were more into eating what there was there, and I was like, brilliant. So yeah, Cosmo really went in for it. He was like chomping away at the bit on it. I was like, brilliant, this is great, love it. Gizmo wasn't too bad. He's a bit funny with introducing new foods. He's like, nope, not touching that. Even if it's going to make them poorly, they still are like, nope, I like this food, not that one. So that's what it was about. It was about just letting them get on with it, stepping back, not making a big deal out of it, letting them get on with it, seeing what they think. The poops haven't been, and this is the best bit, we haven't had a massive running in and out of the trays every 5 minutes with Percy. I haven't had the running in and outs of the trays with Cosmo. He has not been too bad. But yeah, certain cats will be in and out, in and out. Percy was the worst one. But since doing all this, it's been a lot better. It's not been perfect, but it's a huge step in the right direction. And I thought, now I've introduced a new food, there is going to be a change in their toileting as well, because it's something different. The body's just got to get used to, it's got to find its own balance. And then the plan is to drop off the Tesco and IAMS, I had to think what it was called then, slowly. So you introduce more of the other and less of that. So we will see. I know I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I just find that if I explain everything, it just helps. It helps me remember as well what I'm saying, because I just get so forgetful. Yeah. So that was that. That's how it's been the past couple of days. I am very impressed. I'm just sort of working on now, just letting them get used to, because I think their palates, it's like when we went vegan, it takes, I would say, a month for your palate to get used to the changes in foods. because somebody put on the vegan cat group, when another person was asking about how to get their cats to go vegan, they said it takes at least 6 weeks for this changeover, because their bodies have got to get used to the change. It's like when we went vegan, and you know, the taste of certain foods that you miss, like cheese, you know, it's like I gave it a month without any cheese whatsoever, and then tried the vegan cheese again, and that's when I liked it. It's really weird, you know, your body has just got to get used to the difference of what it's used to in the mouth. So yeah, you've just got to ride it out and work with it, and that's what they're having to do now. I just keep on with it as it is. But that's how they've been today. They've been pretty good, and I was really, really pleased when I put the dry food down after I'd emptied out what was in the bowl, and they actually were eating, and they weren't cherry picking, they were actually eating what they enjoyed, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So it is going to take a bit of time, but we will get there. I have a feeling on it. It's just I've got to find the right level. So there we go. Right, I'm going to switch this off now, and I'll do the piece that I was going to do on animal derivatives. So this is basically how these guys have been doing, for anybody that's that's not caught up with the dramas of it all, and then how they've been getting on today. Have they been eating it wholeheartedly? Not really. They've been picking at it, which to me is a start. Having a small bit is better than nothing. I made the mistake of emptying out the entire tin between every cat. What I should have done is halved it and put the other half away in the fridge, and just put the other half of it down amongst the foods so they can get used to it that way. I think if you overwhelm them a little bit, that also can have an effect on them eating stuff. If they've got a huge amount there, that also is too much. So yeah, right, I'm going to end this one now, and I'm going to talk about animal derivatives and what I found on the net. So stay tuned. Bye.